Okay, Spencer, I know there's a lot of to do about the Dolphins in cold weather. And it sounds like we're going to have a decently mild game with a 4:00 kick. This game obviously got flexed out of Sunday Night Football, but it sounds like there might be a little bit of precipitation. Is that something that I don't know how close your nose is to the forecast as far as side-eyeing it or anything like that?
Last I saw, and it is Christmas week, so I have been kind of checked out on these things, but last I looked, it was, I think, like 50-ish degrees and going to rain on Sunday. Yes. So, and we were just in the locker room the day we recorded this, and we were asking players about that because there is obviously this reputation that the Dolphins can't play in cold weather. And so, players are kind of answering whether or not they thought that would have helped their cause and been sort of a home field advantage for them. And they downplayed it, of course. Like somebody mentioned, well, they played in Green Bay early this year, so they're used to it. But yeah, if the Browns had any hope, or if fans had any hope that was going to help the Dolphins maybe put together a bad game, it doesn't look like that's going to be in the cards. Although maybe the rain limits the passing game a little bit. We'll see.
Yeah, the Tua Tagovailoa was asked on Thursday about the last time he played in a colder environment in the rain, and it was week 17 in 2021, I think, was the last time they played against the Titans. And Tua said, the first thing I remember about that game is I did not play well and we lost. So these opportunities are fairly limited for Miami. So I think the rain is an interesting element to watch, where the team is coming off of a successful performance on the ground against San Francisco, but they had not run the ball well for 2 months prior to that. I mean, we're talking rushing yardages in the 40s and 50s per game. So if the rain becomes heavy at any stretch throughout the game, that is an element there that I think is just an extra storyline to watch. But I, for one, am thankful that we will not have a recreation of that Thursday game with Pittsburgh and Cleveland from earlier this year, because narratives are narratives for a reason, and I have no doubt that would not have been a fun experience for the Dolphins to play.
Yeah, that whole thing's funny because we're obviously going through, I don't know how well other fan bases are aware of this, but the Browns are right now going through a whole new stadium situation where the owners are funding this new project closer to their team facility, which isn't in downtown. It's a whole thing. We don't have to get into the minutia of that, but after that game, there was this new, like, this chorus of people that had been, the ones claiming like, oh, we need an open air stadium because the new stadium is going to be a dome. They all came back out of the woodwork. They were like, oh, see, this is why we keep it in. We have an open air stadium because we can get games like this. And it was not just neglecting the fact that those happen like once every, I don't know, 10 years that you get a game like that. So it's not like it's really that big of a factor. And then a couple weeks later, there was actually, I guess it was it the Chiefs game? I guess. Yeah, I think it was the Chiefs game 2 weeks ago. It was like a rainy day and there was like nobody in the stands. And it was like, so this is the weather. This is the weather that you're forgetting about. Like most days you get this, you don't get the cool snowstorm where the Browns win, and the nostalgia of it all isn't there. So this is why you want to know.
Well, let's get into a couple keys to victory. I'd love to hear from your perspective. What does a win for the Browns look like on Sunday?
Yeah, I mean, I do think that the tackling has to be, I think, front of mind because the Dolphins. I think this offense is known. Tyreek Hill's Tyreek Hill. He can show the top every now and then. And there were some guys talking about that in the locker room this week already. But like the way that this team plays, like we talked about, the shorter passes, trying to get guys in space to kind of like run and be able to make plays. You got to have sound tackling in this game on defense. And that's kind of like the biggest point that I'm looking at on the defensive side is like just limiting what this offense with all their amazing skill players are able to do. The rest of it for me comes down to what the offense is going to do and how effective they're actually going to be. Because last week, there was moments in the second half where they could move the ball, but they went after their first drive where a 66-yard run got them down to the 10, and then they got to the goal line and fumbled, and then the Bengals go down 99 yards and score. After that first drive, the Browns went 3 and out their next like 3 drives, and then had like a 5-play, 15-yard drive and punted after that one as well. Like this offense with Dorian Thompson-Robinson is going to have to find ways to put up points. They're going to have to do better in terms of moving the football up and down the field. And on a sloppy day, like we alluded to, that could be a little bit harder. And I honestly do think like they got to find a way to get this run game going. They had the big explosive play last week with Jerome Ford, but they got to have like more consistent, I think, running game, because I think that gets Dorian Thompson-Robinson a little bit more comfortable. And he is part of that because he is a mobile quarterback. Like he can do some things with his legs. But if they can get this run game going, especially in sloppy weather, they can get DTR a little bit more comfortable back there, then I think that sets him up to make some of the necessary plays in the passing game. And they got to be able to get Jerry Jeudy the ball. He had 3 targets last week. That's a problem. And if you're going to be missing David Njoku and potentially Cedric Tillman as well, you got to get the ball to the playmakers that you have out there. So, I think those are kind of the big things I'm looking at in terms of trying to beat this Miami team. I know that's not going to be easy because they do have a pretty stout defense in their own right. I think they're top 8 in the league, somewhere around there. But yeah, so I don't love, based on how the offense played last week, I'm a little bit weary of this matchup just in general. But yeah, I think that's kind of what it looks like. What about from the Dolphins' perspective? What are some of the big things you have your eyes on in terms of keys to get that team to be heading home with the win?
Yeah, I think they should probably be invested in matching Jalen Ramsey with Jerry Jeudy in this game. And there's been some times in games where Garrett Wilson, who's a player who has some of the same movement skills as Jerry Jeudy, where Jerry Jeudy has this suddenness at the top of routes where he can just explode and snap out of what seems like it's a straight vertical press. Garrett Wilson tested Jalen Ramsey with a couple of those the first time the Dolphins played the Jets just a couple weeks ago, and Ramsey matched up with Wilson for much of that game. So I think it gives you the best chance when the other alternatives is Kendall Fuller, their veteran corner, who's the CB2, looks like he's going to be out for this game. So that's going to have Kader Kohu, who's been traditionally the nickel, is going to be the other outside corner. And then you're getting into a situation where do you potentially play some big nickel and have a third safety that's out there?
Yeah.
They've had a third corner and an undrafted free agent in Storm Duck, who they've really liked, who's got some big opportunities in big spots. But frankly, the last time we saw him play was against the Packers, and he played terribly and was a big part of the reason why Miami had some failures to get key stops in big moments throughout the course of that game. So I don't think they want to really play that game with Jerry Jeudy against those other alternatives. So I think that one of the first keys to victory is putting Jalen Ramsey on Jerry Jeudy and say, hey, if you're going to feed Jeudy the ball, we're going to have our best guy consistently on coverage against him and take our chances there and see how that plays out for us. I think winning on first down for the Dolphins on both sides of the ball is really important. The Dolphins have one of the higher run stuff rates as far as when they have the football, and it sets them behind on 2nd and 11, 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10. Those kinds of conditions going against a pass rusher like Myles Garrett, you want to mitigate as much as possible. So that may mean you come out and you spread the field, and you as long as it's the weather is going to cooperate from a throwing perspective, you go empty and you just kind of find an easy completion and set up a 2nd and 6 and kind of get yourself into a more favorable down and distance before you get back into your regular offensive script on whatever that looks like. But case in point, the Browns are 9th in third down defense percentage. It's under 35 or 36% conversion rate on third downs this year. And they're dead last in the league on offense on third downs. So the more 2nd and 10s plus and 3rd and 7s plus you can put Cleveland in situationally when they have the ball, I think is a big point of emphasis for where that team really measures metrically well right now, and trying not to feed into those with what you do on either side of the ball. So I think those are two obvious things. And for a defense that hasn't generated turnovers with any consistency this year, they have 2 turnovers in the last 4 games. To see a team coming to town that's got 12 turnovers in the last 3 games, you got to take advantage of a young player at the quarterback position to put yourself in a position to win that game. So I think those are things for Miami that maybe they're a little bit less schematically, and there's some bounce of the ball luck that's involved with some of that. But I think that's the recipe for Miami is win the early downs and play your matchups, put your best player on their best player, and then see how the rest of the game can organically play out for you.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And I do think, the turnovers have been one of the biggest problems for this team, and along the lines of like getting DTR comfortable. He's got to be able to protect that football better. Because while they've been turnover machines on offense, They have not been turnover machines on defense, and their turnover differentials is there's a massive discrepancy there, and that's part of the reason why they are 3-12 and find themselves where they're at. So, yeah, I think that's obviously super critical, super important, and I think that third down stat is what I was alluding to, where it's like the defense hasn't been as bad as people have made it out to be this year. And yeah, like they can keep the Browns in games, and I could see that happening on Sunday. But can the offense do enough to, match or stay pace with a team like Miami who can put up points in a hurry at times? That's the big question.